All right, now I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to our host, Karin Copeland.
Hi, everybody. Yay, yay. We are, I guess, all collectively, what's the word? We're collectively trying to be better about incorporating people in the room and the digital people in the world. So bear with us as we like to experiment here. So it's really great to be back in the venue. This is my office space as well as, being here, Venture Café. I also work here. And I'm the CEO of a company called Create Exchange. And the X is where all the action is. It's bringing together different ideas, forming different ideas. I get to work with amazing authors like Casey right here. What are the trends that are impacting your decision making in the next month? So I work with new authors when they're releasing new books because we curate, design and curate what's the next big thing out there. What's the next big thing that we're seeing? So when I got the opportunity, John Tye, who's in the audience, he introduced me to Casey and his brand new book, Permission to Glow, a spiritual guide to epic leadership. I was like, we have to have him at Venture Café because I thought it was super awesome. And plus it's incredibly relevant to what's going on right now in the world. And I was excited to read it and get the opportunity to meet Casey in person and have him here tonight. So the book will be coming out October 5th.
Yes.
October 5th. So I got the little pre-one, and I'm always super excited like that because I like to be able to read things before everybody else. That's one of the cool things about my gig is getting ready before everybody else.
It's a special type of privilege.
So, and I love it. Expand your awareness to live and lead while unlocking your highest purpose. So, all right. So let me talk about Casey first. I talked about what I do, but Casey is a spiritual teacher that works at the intersection of consciousness and business. And I think that's super cool because I've always worked at the intersection of arts and businesses. So I love it. It's kind of like when I talk about that X, the exchange of different ideas coming together and how we can learn and be more whole or be more creative, better humans in our everyday world. So I was super into that. He is the founder of The Epic Life, a website and podcast devoted to conscious living, which he had created a daily meditation practice for thousands. He's a meditation teacher, 6,500 active students on Insight Timer. You're an Insight Timer?
I am an Insight Timer. Yes.
I've been obsessed with Insight Timer for a very long time.
Well, you need to get obsessed with my guided
I need to put that in my bookmark. I'm like the queen of bookmarks. I'm like, I need you in my bookmark, baby.
That's right.
So that's pretty awesome. And he is the founder of the 4 Permissions, a framework which guides his coaching. Fortune 100 executive leaders in Amazon, AT&T, Edward Jones, in many startups and mid-sized companies, multi-generational family business. So I don't want to get all of it because he is fabulous, but I want you to go to theepiclife.com, which you can read more info. He's multi-talented. This is your first book.
This is my first book. It's This Epic Life, but it's.
Did I say call it what?
No, it's cool. You're super close. It's like
Okay.
The Epic Life.
Okay.
But This Epic Life, and yes, this is my first book, and I was telling for all of our online friends, some of my favorite people are in the online world. John, who made this possible today, El Dooley, my right-hand woman, Laura Neff. I really appreciate you guys being here for this. But I was saying that this is my Philadelphia baby shower. And you guys all get to sit in on it, and you didn't even need to go pick up the gift registry for this, just be a part of this. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
So, and what I love about Casey too, and was really drawn to, is he's an accomplished musician and singer-songwriter, as well as being a meditation teacher. He's a lot of things. He's a lot of amazing things. So I just think we're in for a super fun time. So I'm going to ask him some questions here. So anybody wants to raise their hand, we'll get to a Q&A portion of the event, and I want you to be able to ask the question. The people on Zoom, you can put it in chat or raise your hand when that time comes along.
So I was going to say, I spend most of my time as a coach, so it's usually my job to ask very pointed, often difficult and uncomfortable, awkward questions. So now's your chance to ask me anything that's on your mind. Nothing is off limits regarding the book or anything we talk about here today. We want the questions, so please think about those and come up.
So one thing that I just have to say too, when you read this book, it's so incredible. Casey is amazing with his use of words. He's also like some 1980s super hip guy that's really connected to the 1980s. So if anybody loves the 80s, this is a book for you. He makes it fun, which I think is really awesome. He makes it really fun. So I guess I want to come a bit about how did you get into this line of work to begin with, being the executive leadership coach, working with C-suite executives, and being a spiritual teacher as well.
Yeah, well, strangely enough, there wasn't a major in college to be a spiritual teacher, let alone one that works in corporate circles. It's been this very long, kind of amazing journey of becoming whatever this is. And I've always had that heart and mindset of a coach. I loved unlocking human potential. I love mindset. I love inspiring people. And just as recently as 3 years ago, I finally got formally trained as a coach. Lisa was a huge part of my own training as a coach. And prior to having certification, I always said I was certifiable, meaning like I was crazy enough to do it, to hang in very difficult conversations with people. I've always been that person that when you sit next to on a plane, you will tell them everything. Like people tell me their biggest fears, their biggest ambitions, their big honking dreams. And I think it was some sort of combination of curiosity and openness.
Yeah.
And I've always been a seeker since I was a kid. I was terrified of organized religion as a child by some terrible TV evangelist. And because of that guy, I went on a quest as a young kid to find better teachers, which led me to the work of Paramahansa Yogananda, who I consider my teacher or guru. So it's been a lot of years of pretty intense meditation, and the work continues. I'm nowhere near there yet, but I love sharing everything I'm discovering at the intersection of consciousness and human performance.
Nobody's ever there, though, Casey, are they?
If they say they are, you should be suspect.
Be suspect. Okay, so then why the book right now? Like when did you start writing the book and why now?
The book has a really interesting origin. At the end of the hour here, I'm going to play a song that actually inspired the book. And one of my teachers who lives here in Philadelphia, Kristoffer Carter, she's a true mystic. And whether you believe in that or not, my direct experience has been, I've been kind of a magnet for the ethereal, magical, woo-woo people for many years now. And I don't even use the term woo-woo, it just is how it is with a lot of my talented friends in that area. And Teresa basically told me on January 5th, 2020 that the book would arrive. She said that my teachers were waiting for me to get out of my own way and allow it to happen. And then once the pandemic showed up, I ran out of excuses. So it's been my dream for 20 years. And then that same day, I ran into a woman that helped train me, Christine Sachs. I was on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I turned around this intersection. She doesn't live in that part of town, and I live in Ohio. And there she is. And I've always wanted to hire her as my coach. So I said, okay, I've heard the book is coming. The best coach I know is behind me, and I hired Christina to coach me. And she took this big honking dream for 20 years, and we got it done in 6 months. So
6 months.
Yeah, the first draft. I mean, the first draft of a book is like harvesting a slab of granite from the earth and dragging it across the desert. It's brutal. But then you get to chisel it for another 12 months. So it has a little bit of auspicious origins to it, but I sat down and did it during the pandemic. It's just time to do it. When I look outside, in our world today, there's so much volatility, uncertainty, complexity, political division, climate change. We have to do something. So the timing of the book, I think, is there's a lot of urgency to it.
So, do you want to start with? I wanted to start with the 4 permissions.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. The 4 permissions first. So, what are the 4 permissions, and how were each discovered? Do you want to show and tell? Because I'm the queen of show and tell.
Yes.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
just gonna drop these off, so Lisa has these too. But these bookmarks and these signs here, hopefully people at home can see them.
And maybe, I don't know, do we want to pass them around right now or no?
Yeah, did you guys get bookmarks yet? Let's make sure you get those, 1 second.
Okay, he's gonna leave the camera for 1 minute and hand out his bookmarks. There's some really amazing swag that Casey has. He's stickers, he's got all sorts of cool swag.
So the question was, what are the core permissions and how do they come to be? And I think it's important to start with what they solve for. So they've evolved really organically throughout my career over the last 6 or 7 years. The first one I gave voice to was the third permission to glow in the dark. And I used to think it was this thing, people used to thank me for, gosh, thank you for being you wherever you are. You know, there's no filter between being a dad or a musician or a performer. It's just this audacity piece. And I thought that was like, sorry, not sorry, I'm gonna be me, that's permission to glow in the dark. But in discovering, through the discovery process of the book, I had to really distinguish what the darkness was all about. So now I consider permission 3 to be about doing the thing you came here to do, despite the ever-present fear that always hangs nearby, and it's always going to be there. So that was the first one. I also launched a meditation program for a company that I used to work for, and we used the pause button. The program was called Pause, and that evolved into the first permission, which is permission to chill. Let me take you through them sequentially because I think they'll make the most sense. So the purpose of the book is peace, because if I could give my clients and my kids and anybody I know one thing on earth, it would be peace. Even one fleeting moment of peace. You know, we work our asses off all year long to take the vacation, whatever. Maybe like on that 3rd day of vacation when we put our phone down long enough, we might have a fleeting moment of peace before some notification takes us back into the Instagram hellhole. So peace is what the book's about. And when I think about permission to chill, it's being at peace with whatever rises up in the moment to test us. So the discernment it takes to create that gap between stimulus and response, you get to choose your response, that to me requires chill. And when you're hitting the pause button in a crazy world like the one we live in, that in itself, even thinking about chilling, is a defiant act. And that is the foundational act of the framework, because unless you're willing to still yourself and really understand what's going on with you, you're not going to have the reaction you want. So that's permission to chill. And the foundational practice of that is creating a meditation habit. Permission to feel all the feels, it sets up the second permission, represented by the sick unicorn. The unicorn for me represents this access to our intuitive guidance. And if we think of our emotional guidance system as a tree, the emotions, our root emotions, are the roots of the tree, and our feelings are the branches of the tree. And I believe that if we use our feelings to navigate down to those root emotions, we can hear the wisdom our body is speaking to us. And I feel like that is actually the language of the soul. And you know, there is a definite spiritual agenda to the book, and I want to just meet that head on. In the beginning of the book, I say, whatever that God force, spirit, the greatest of all time, whatever you want to call that thing, it doesn't care what we call it, and it doesn't even care if we believe in it. If you're a person of faith, or if you're somebody who practices yoga, through direct experience of meditation over time, you start to realize, wow, there is some sort of unifying force here. And I think most of us can agree that whether or not we believe in spirit, we can tell when we are fully aligned from the inside out, when we are fully embodied with what we're here to do. And that's what I want to call forward as a coach and as an author. Does that make sense? So I know some people can have baggage around religion or spirit, and I'm one of those people as well, but it's been my experience through practicing these things that we can create more of it in our lives. So back to feeling the feelings. This is where all my breakthroughs come with my own coaching, my own work. When we're able to put down the mask, which I call game face, and stop trying to be this like perfect superhuman droid, which we get trained to be in schools, we can access our superhumanity. And our superhumanity is found in our deep connection to others. And we do that by authentically sharing the reality of what's going on with us. And it's scary and terrifying and awkward, and if you're a dude, it's twice as hard. But it's powerful work. And the challenge with feelings is they are mental projections of emotions. So it's our mind interpreting these emotions. And what our mind wants to do is usually make us wrong for how we feel. But by giving ourselves permission to feel, we accept the entirety of ourselves. Our emotional intelligence raises. We can see others, we can see it be seen, and then we can access this intuitive wisdom. And I think that is a superpower. Make sense? So that's permission to feel all the feels. Permission to glow in the dark, as I mentioned, full expression with witnesses, doing the thing despite the ever-present darkness, sometimes doing it because the possibility of real face-palming failure is on the table, and you will do the damn thing anyway. That is permission to glow in the dark. And I think when I look around this world, I think a lot of the darkness we're experiencing is trying to call us forth and to show up differently and to do more. Something is being asked of us with all this chaos and uncertainty. So that's permission to glow in the dark. And then the fourth one is probably my favorite now. And if anybody wants to try the essential oil that activates this permission, we all just got super drunk with power right before, didn't we?
For the second time, that happened twice today.
Yeah, that's the first time somebody's walked up to me in many, many years and said, hey, do you want to hit this? I've been sober for 10 years. So anyway, the activation oil is the fourth permission. It's permission to glow in the light. And one of my longtime heroes, Anya Franco, she's a songwriter, a feminist icon, best-selling author. She gave me a quote for the book, and she was pointing out the feminist agenda I have with everything I do, because I do believe the future of leadership, I truly hope is led by women. And she asked me one time on that podcast, she said,
or more conscious.
Yeah, and more conscious dudes, but more conscious dudes equals the divine feminine, truly. It's the divine feminine side of leadership. And it's not to say that all masculinity is bad. We need to push, we need to drive, we need to make things happen. But there's a lot to be said for allowing things to happen. And any of the incredible leaders I've worked with, the ones that tap into that allowing piece without the striving, they create exponentially more than the other type that just want to push the boulder up the hill. So permission to glow in the light is the unobstructed glow of people that come together who have done the earlier work of chilling, feeling, giving themselves permission to glow in the dark. They are now not concerned with competition or scarcity. They transcend those kind of lower things we work with all the time. They transcend that for cooperation, for collaboration. And I think that there's anything our Creator would want for us, it's to help one another out and try to start to fix some of the disasters we've been causing. So that's permission to glow in the light.
So I want to get to the frenemies.
Yeah.
Want to talk about the frenemies right now?
I love the
Because the
frenemies.
frenemies are what stand in the way of
Yeah.
the permissions.
Right.
So let's talk about the frenemies.
Well, remember back in high school when you had those friends, you couldn't tell if they were with you or against you. They were kind of like frenemies. My daughter's a teenager. She's 17, my oldest daughter. And she started to navigate these waters of senior year of high school. Some of her friends are with her, some of them it's hard to tell. So I use the word frenemies. In ontological coaching, we call them survival mechanisms. But these are the critters on this side over here. These are kind of like
everybody see the frenemies?
These are our defaults. There's 4 of them. There's Speedy Rabbit. Speedy Rabbit wants to move faster than everybody else and judge everybody for not keeping up. They're spooked into moving fast at all times because they feel like if they stop, they will die. And when my clients show up with that, I call it shark energy. When they're just sitting there, saying like, wow, you're bringing a lot of shark energy in here. You want to just chill with it. That's Speedy Rabbit. The next one's Game Face, I mentioned, which is to mask your humanity, mask your full emotions for fear of sharing your heart or being judged. The third one is the Phantom Pest. So this is like the classic micromanager or the swooper, the person who's so confronted with their own power that they would rather stay up obsessing over little details like PowerPoint fonts than doing something big and important that they know they should be doing. That's the Phantom Pest. And the final one is Dark Star. Dark Star is this more advanced version of Game Face. This is somebody who's created a career and a role that keeps them separate from receiving support. They will tell you that they're holding space for everybody, but they really have a problem being with all of the people around them or receiving support or letting people know that they need help. So they're at the far end of the galaxy, they're largely unavailable, they think everything is fine, and meanwhile, things mysteriously seem to suck. That's Dark Star.
Okay, so we went through frenemies. So one thing I see is why why is failure so high in personal development programs or leadership programs? Why is it so high?
I love this
What do
question.
you think?
Yeah, so you'll see at the top of these banners next to us, I got this,
Yeah.
on the default side. And I think I got this, well, what comes up for you when you say, I got this? What comes up for you? What does that mean? I got this. It's like,
Just leave me alone.
or like confident, it's like some kind of confidence, right? Like, let's do it, let's get it done. And that's fine. And I think 1980s personal development pushed this to its limit. It's like this achiever, masculine, rah, get it done energy. I got this, I plow through walls, achiever. And the biggest missing ingredient, I believe, and the reason why personal transformation doesn't stick, is because it's largely devoid of self-compassion. That if we allow ourselves, and the reason they're called frenemies is we have to befriend these critters. We can't judge ourselves as broken just for having these. Or we can't just say, I want to flip a switch and be a better person, a more effective person. And I think a lot of us go, and trust me, I've consumed it all. I've prayed at the altar of Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. I walked on fire with Tony Robbins. Like, I love all of it. But the stuff that didn't really stick was the ones where I was just expecting myself to be different and judging myself if I wasn't. But the ones where I loved myself along the way, accepted the very linear path of growth, transformation took root over time.
Yeah.
So I'd say self-compassion is missing.
So, you know what? I'm obsessed with that word glow. What? Oh, I'm obsessed with the word glow. And what's the difference between glow and shine? What is the significance? And it seems like it's a more spiritual thing to say glow instead of shine.
Yeah. Well, I think the shine is rooted in the I got this, look at me.
Yeah.
Watch me shine.
Yeah.
Spirit fingers. And there's nothing wrong with that, and in physics, something that shines, like if you think about the moon during a full moon, it's reflecting, Teresa, good to see you. It's reflecting the light of the sun. It's the shine of the sun is reflecting off the moon. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's coming from an external source of light. That's the shine.
Right.
A glow emanates from within, and I think that's what you picked up.
Yeah, right.
And a glow is like a pilot light on a dream that you could leave burning from the time you're a kid and then somehow eventually see it through. And and in yoga too, that glow, if you practice yoga, think about your yoga teacher. They usually have a shine and a sparkle and they got that happy glow. That's all that pranayama, that's all the practice they do to help them glow.
So I work with a lot of companies inside corporations too, and how do people feel about the spiritual part of your teaching, the work that you're coaching?
By people, do you mean like hard driving?
Well, yeah, those kind of people.
Those people.
Well, no, maybe they're not as enlightened, or
maybe. It's funny. Like I got into that. First of all, when I became an executive coach, I was largely terrified of executives because I thought all of them were my dad. Gary Carter saying, "Get out of my office." Holding space with those people, you start to realize that they have all the same fears. Doesn't matter how giant of a company they're responsible for, how many people they're responsible for, all the same fears. And by and large, they are very spiritually curious.
Right.
Because what I discovered in some of my own experiments was that where the personal development path ends, meaning an achievement and getting to all the achievement and realizing it doesn't bring you fulfillment, I really believe the spiritual path begins. And I think those seasoned leaders are so far down those development paths, they get that. They get that there's something more. They need to expand the container from inside out. And that becomes a spiritual conversation. And whether or not I use those terms, I have clients here tonight, we may or may not use those terms, but if we're talking about essence versus survival, I think they can feel that we're talking about the soul. And when we tap into our soul, it's so much more infinitely powerful. So my teacher Yogananda would teach that we could be, throughout our lives, we could be one little wave on the ocean or one little ship that gets storm tossed all over through life, victim, or through practice, you could surrender into becoming the full enormity of the entire ocean. You can be part of that. And that's what yoga is. It means union. And when you become one with that vast ocean of benevolence, all things become possible. And when I use that language, or not even that language, when I start working with clients, when they feel that potential, when they feel that possibility, they seem to lean into a spiritual conversation.
And that's transformational. I mean, so talk to me about that process when you go into a company. How does it start? Does it start first? I know you like specifically to work with the CEOs, the C-suite, and the CEOs. You want to start at the top and then have the more trickle down.
Sometimes, I mean, it's I love my leaders at all levels. I love the high potential successors kind of the most because
But it always has to start with the C.
Well, usually I'm brought in. I get brought in for a lot of workshops, and usually we go down to the deep end pretty quickly out the gate. I've been trained to read people's energy on some level. I think coaching is a big part of that. You spend a lot of time with people, how they show up and what they're bringing into a space. So I try to meet them wherever they are. And usually when I walk into a room of leaders for the first time, they're just a little twitchy, they're a little caffeinated, and they either don't want to be there or like I'm competing with their phone. And my first job is to call that out right away and say, drop your phone in the box and step into the circle, but only do it if you really want to play. Because if not, I don't need you in the circle.
If you really want to be here, committed to the conversation, then you don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a trick because I use their ego. I'll say, so and so, the CEO just walked in the circle. You want, and they'll come in the circle. And we do a lot of the things that we do on retreat. When I do on my life at the Epic Life retreats, I just happen to be wearing a different shirt or maybe a jacket sometimes, but. When you start really engaging people outside of the technology and really getting them to play and to share and connect, the hierarchical levels in their organization disappear, and you could see a seasoned CEO or whoever become a kid again and discover wonder. And in that conversation, who doesn't want to feel a little bit more like that? At all times, like our little kid sparks are always right there under the surface, and it doesn't matter. We're just slightly older, big babies, basically.
So when somebody hires you, Casey, is it because I think we all know that attraction and retention of employees is really tough. I mean, for everybody, it's really tough.
Right now,
so when somebody's coming to you, what's the number one thing that you're seeing why they're driven to hire you in the company?
Yeah, and first, the war for talent right now is real. It's unprecedented how hard it is to get and to keep great people. And now any company on earth can compete for your people in your backyard because we've all been distributed because of the pandemic. It's an incredible time to be alive if you're a remote worker, and it's a challenging time if you're responsible for the headcount. And so I'd say a lot of it ties to that. I'm really excited in business. People are investing a lot more in development of employees. They realize that to retain those employees want to be coached. They don't want to be managed. If you just manage a human being, you should manage a project, not a human being. Because if you manage it, you'll manage it right out of there. You're like, I don't need this. But if you coach them, if you develop them, if you give them more skills to thrive, that's usually what I'm brought in. I'm usually brought in by the Total Rewards team, formerly known as Benefits. It's usually called Total Rewards now.
It's not the chief people officers?
Chief people officers run the whole team.
Yeah, okay.
And I work with them a lot, but usually the people that end up signing my work order for workshops are Total Rewards. Okay. And then it's great. I got a nice little racket going because if I get exposure to the executives, I usually will work one-to-one with the executives. Right. And then do wider team development. But yeah, I'd say it's on human potential, human thriving. And that's encouraging that companies are investing in that. It absolutely matters.
Right. There was something that you said that I really loved, because I think it is always such a struggle. Like even with all of us, where there's so many opportunities for us to learn and try different things, and staying committed to it can be challenging. I love when you were talking about some ways to gamify the change and to make it fun, and I really see so much of that. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I mean, one of the questions I ask a client just about every single day is, what's a game you will win? Because when I say, okay, well, what actions do you want to take? I'm going to do this, one, those 20 bullets, and this, whatever. And there's no way. There's just no way. I say, what's a game you will win? And then we'll design something that's fun. and then we celebrate. And I always say, send me one text when you did the thing. No, one emoji when you did the thing. What is the one emoji that summarizes how you feel after doing the thing? So it's that little reward of them telling their coach, hey, I did the thing, I'm sending you a flame or a, whatever. That is just a little game to encourage them further down the path. And part of the reason there's so much humor and 1980s pop culture references in the book is I needed a lot of sugar to help the medicine go down.
No, I love that. I think it really works in the simplest of the visual components. The visual things help people to remember. I think.
Well, personal transformation is just a hard game, and it's not always fun. And it's, we can be very brutal on ourselves, and it's change in general is an organism that human beings don't accept change very well. So when it all shows up, if we've been inviting this in for decades and it all shows up at once, we usually thrash around and freak out, understandably. However, if we create the game and we play life as a game, we're able to stick with it.
I love when you all get the book. I'm so obsessed with the chapters. I mean, welcome to a new season. Oh, welcome to a new season. You kicked that off. What's with welcome to a new season?
Well, I was decidedly unathletic as a kid. I had zero athletic skills whatsoever, but I always thought coaches were just the coolest. Like, bring it in, take a knee, nice hustle out there.
Ted Lasso. That's why everybody loves Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso is amazing. Yeah. You're playing with lots of heart. These kind of coaching cliches, but you could really feel that person wanted you to win, And so I started with that, but then I started getting into the reality of the season we're in, which is what the military calls yuga, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And when you realize that you're in a season that we've never experienced before, we have to write all new rules, and we better find some way to make it joyful or we will want to die. That's a fact. And we can laugh about it, but the stakes are high, I believe, So that's the whole idea of kicking off.
Yeah, no, I love that.
I'd love to read a little.
Go right ahead. Go right
ahead. You
ahead.
guys cool to hear a little reading?
Yeah.
I picked out a couple sections that I haven't read aloud yet, and this one. In the beginning of each permissions chapter, there's the symbology, and then I describe where the symbology came from with the intention to activate the permission. So I'm going to read you the pause button symbology.
I'm watching
taste of what it can. Our teenage daughter recently discovered an ancient artifact. I blew the dust from its case and cracked it open. We called these cassette tapes. They contained music, sometimes collections of hand.
That's not funny. Okay, it's funny.
You mean like a playlist? Better, my child, mixtapes. Mixtapes were their own art form and are probably best explained by John Cusack's character in the film High Fidelity, adapted from the excellent book by Nick Hornby. Now, the making of a good compilation tape is a very subtle art. Many do's and don'ts. First of all, you're using somebody else's poetry to express how you feel. This is a delicate thing. Part of that subtlety is in the production. Did anybody here ever make mixtapes?
Oh, God, yeah.
Thank you for not making me feel like a crusty old person. Part of that subtlety was in the production. This wasn't dragging various tracks into a playlist like some pampered savage. You were recording tracks from vinyl, CDs, and other tapes onto a fresh cassette. To do this seamlessly, you relied on the pause button. It helped create a clean gap between tracks. The record function would stay engaged, and then you unpause playback for the length of the track. Another ancient relic also had a pause button. This had a much larger cassette, and it was called a VCR, or video cassette recorder. The first VCR remotes were connected by a long cable that wasn't quite long enough to reach your sofa, became something the cat would stop messing with. Up to that point, broadcasting as we knew it ran everything on a program schedule. Meaning, if your butt wasn't in front of the TV, you were going to miss your show. The pause button provided the power of choice. We could choose when we were ready to view or listen. We could choose when we wanted to record it and watch it later. The pause button gave us the power to say, hold up there, powers that be. I'll consume your content when I'm good and ready. Never to be confused with stop. Pause is a momentary break in the action. Stop says we are done here. The pause says I need a minute. Stop would end the movie experience and pause would freeze the frame, allowing you to pick up where you left off. Through the endless slipstream of information, pause is our sword and our shield. We can silence the chatter, halt, and redirect to what better serves us. We pause to look up what was said, to fact check its authenticity. We can pause communication and relationships and pick them right back up, whereas stopping cuts them off entirely. Pause is our gateway into the gap and our exit point back into the action. When the children entered the wardrobe in C.S. Lewis's classic book, Narnia awaited while their world stood still. Pause gives us reprieve from the current onslaught, or the power to hold on or savor a bit longer. Like meditation practice, the pause is a deceptively active process. But when you become consciously aware that there is a pause button in any circumstance, and that only your finger can activate or deactivate it, you realize the gravitas of the quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That quote is typically attributed to Viktor Frankl, and through research, it looks like it came from Stephen Covey, actually. Pause, chill, drop back into the mix with more wisdom and discernment.
And each of the chapters have, that was the pause button symbology, there's a unicorn, so how do you say it? Symbol.
I would do the unicorn one, but it always makes me cry, and I'm not there yet.
No, but I'm just saying, there's the lightning bolt symbology,
Yeah.
there's the lighthouse symbology, and I just love all of them. But before each chapter,
my amazing editor, Kendra Warren, she had this great, she's responsible for the Divine Feminine in the book, I believe, and she had this great idea to move the symbology. They were just gonna be these little endnote things, and she's like, let's kick off every one of those sections with that to activate it and to make it fun. And so the goal of that section I just read is to make it accessible. So rather than saying like, you really shouldn't meditate, you really should, like shaming you into meditating, I can say, well, what is the power of pausing? And so I really credit her with that.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. So what time is it? Do I want to give us a bit of time
For questions?
for questions. People in the audience, of course, we have the mics here, and then the people on sort of flash floods here in real time. Apologies. I'm saying, God, this weather. Okay, I'm not going to say it anymore about the weather here, but
We literally saw Noah's Ark cruising down the street.
Yeah.
It got a little
well, he
tense.
did miss the big flood they had last week when Philadelphia was underwater, but. People in the virtual audience as well, to be able to, Angela can work with me and we want to unmute them and they can ask a question as well. So if there's anybody in the audience.
Any questions as far as either creating the book, how it lands, but and nothing's off limits, any questions, I love questions. Lisa Leonard.
What would you suggest for?
Hold a second, can I just want to make sure the virtual audience, like that everybody's hearing us, because we want to be all inclusive to everyone.
Great. You're all set.
My question has to do with how can we who kind of believe in the rule or support, what's in the book and all the things like opportunities to grow and grow, to the whole part of the world that is not open, or is that sort of the resistance?
Yeah, so her question, if you didn't hear it at home, is how do us light workers, woo-woo, even giving it a name implies that we are different from them. We are all in this together. Tristan.
That working?
Check. Yeah. Thank you. Check. It implies that there's something different. And how do I break it? And I've struggled with this myself. Like, how does this guy that wears beads over his shirts or whatever break into corporate? the fact is, I worked in my corporate career and I have a lot of deep empathy for those people behind that particular wall. So I think it starts with all of us seeing that we are all providers. And then a big part of the call to action in Permission to Glow is I want to create networks of people that can help deploy those workers inside organizations to connect them. Because my experience is that, executive like Mark who came from Amazon is just as curious and open and wants to meet the people that can transform stuff for the better. And so I think a lot of times us as providers reinforce that division. And we think that there's some sort of like magic bullet to get in there, but I think it's being in conversation with people and realizing like how valuable we are to what they're trying to create. So I ask people to think, are you here to transform an organization from the outside in, which would be like you or I, or from the inside out? Mark's an inside out, I'm an outside in. And we have a lot in common and we share a lot of the same struggles and we need each other. At least I need you, Mark.
I know there's a client, like I know there's some here.
I think there's some of your clients here. It'd be great to hear from anybody that has a question of like what the process has been.
Mark, do you want to either confirm or debunk anything I've said here tonight? Or just
What's the question?
Just if you just want to give a snapshot of either how the permissions or how this work has influenced you or your work as a leader.
And also your team, you're managing your team or.
So I've been working with Casey for 2 years, and I think the key to how we work through is, I don't feel like we took the core and just applied it like a
curriculum.
Yeah, like a curriculum and we had to go through it. I think as you were going through it, I think the big one that I think I would know a lot is chill.
Right. You don't say.
I mean, yeah. Because I work at Amazon, and it's not a chill place, right? It's a very moving place. Every week, every month, every day is where we get. And just being able to, and I try to exemplify it to my team and to everybody that actually, even if you, let's just say you got part with sick for a day, it would all be there tomorrow. And you would all, and no one actually notices. People get married, they get sick to something as a kid, they take 3 months off and come back to fall, still there. You know what I mean? So then I think to me that's the one that most resonates. And maybe in the next 2, 4, 6 years we'll go to another fruit. But that's
Sweet.
Did you spend 2 years on chill?
No. What's interesting about Mark, that is part of who he shows up as. He has this ease and is very chill. I mean, he's a hard driving achiever type, and I think that serves you incredibly well. And when you help a leader, a hard driving leader, create more space in their lives, they start realizing that not all action is created equal. There is action for action's sake, and then there is right action. And yogis were concerned with right action, like they would meditate X number of hours or days or whatever, and do the 2 to 3 most high leverage things versus the amount of things that most people would do. And that has been cool to watch with you, creating more space in your schedule, more space in how you work, and getting just as much, if not more done.
I have another question. Okay.
So you mentioned, and you talked a little bit about sort of the managerial role of some of your clients versus the CEO leader. So I'm doing some work on it, but the reality is that sometimes managers, they don't make the person feel comfortable about themselves.
Yeah.
But a leader that puts out empathy actually makes that person feel better. And how does that work to help them grow?
Well, if we're going to have a conversation about empathy in organizations, we have to start by giving a ton to managers. They far not have the hardest job. They are responsible for so much, and they don't have a lot of time to, sit in trainings and practice and stuff. So we have to give them empathy out of the gate. It's amazing. The C-level leaders do have more spacious time. They can be more light touch, high leverage. Managers don't have that luxury. They have to be high touch, high leverage. It can be a grind. And we also know that the old adage that people don't quit a bad job, they quit a bad manager. So if you have a if you wear your grumpy pants as a manager for too many weeks in a row, you will repel your people, you know? So I think it's really important to develop and nurture that level of the organization. Thomas said, "What's up?" And also, my friend Michael Stanier has this incredible book, The Coaching Habit. We teach busy managers to coach in 10 minutes or less. And it's powerful because when you start turning managers into high leverage coaches with like much more limited, laser focused precision of asking questions versus telling people what to do. Bad managers that don't have empathy just tell people what to do. You gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do this. It's like, I don't push people away. When you ask people, and a CEO said to me, the 7 most powerful words in business. Like when a CEO asks me if I want to know the 7 most powerful words in business, I'm like, hell yeah, like who doesn't want to know that? I don't know. What do you think? That's a coaching question, And I think that is a big gateway for empathy because when you allow people to talk without being directed upon, you have a gateway to empathy. You can say, oh my gosh, I understand your experience. This is what I intended. I'm sorry if there's anything to clean up. All the things that we can do to really connect versus, in the heat of battle, we just want people to do what we say. And, sometimes that is absolutely appropriate, but a lot of times people, they really just need to be seen and heard. So yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Empathy is really huge. And we all need more of it.
Hey,
Christine, one second, let me give you the mic.
so I have kind of, so it's kind of similar to the first question, but like, so I met you probably 5-6 years ago, and you had like a unicorn hat on playing guitar, you were emceeing this big event,
Yes.
and I was like, somebody gets paid for that? Like, that's the most basic thing in the world.
Best job ever.
It was fantastic, and I got to like fix that and see we live in a similar world. As far as like the coaching stuff and the book writing, it's a similar trajectory. At what point do you think you found or developed the confidence to be like, this is what I do and I'm proud of it and I'm willing to get paid for it, or whether you're getting paid for it or going to corporate places and being like, yeah, I'm gonna keep people out of chill and feel the feels.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And if you missed the part of me, he's the first time he met me, I was wearing a unicorn mask playing guitar and rallying like a few hundred adults at a summer camp. Best job ever. My boss, Jonathan Fields from Good Life Project, he really gave me a venue to do everything I needed to do. He gave me permission to go in the dark, and that was a real seed that was planted. It was a very generous gift. He gave all of the campers through empowering me, and not only me, Amelia. There's a long line of genius creators that thought that event. And your question was about audacity, and it's wrong to assume that I'm not just as mortified as anybody before I walk on stage in a unicorn unitard or whatever ridiculous thing. But part of that getup is to give people permission. And I realized early on, especially at camp, that it's what I use as a pattern interrupt. So I grew up touring in bands, and I use my performative nature as a way to call people out to play, but also to pattern interrupt from like a lot of the posturing we all do. So when they don't see it coming and they're like freaked out by the unicorn thing, or whatever, that they're kind of in this place, and then we can have a real conversation, and that can invite them to morning meditation. And usually by some point in the camp experience, people will say, dude, your brother's so chill, he's leading morning meditation, and you're this freak show running around like a unicorn. I'm like, that's actually me too. But I'm usually mortified. I was nervous. I did all my processes before I came out here tonight. When I sit down to write, sit down to meditate, I have a storm of madness in my head that I have to clear. Walking in with a powerful executive, these are all practices, but I will say this, I have surrendered into being willing to practice. And if there's anything I want anybody to get out of the book, it's just surrender into practicing. Because when you practice, everything opens up, So there's no difference to me walking into a room of like powerful, wealthy people or like campers that I don't know. I'm just as mortified and I'm just as willing to play if I've done my work.
What does a typical day look like for you?
Typical
What does
day?
that look like? I mean, what is that?
Well, it
when
starts
you're
with
honoring
400 deep lunges.
Well, you're honoring the four
permissions.
permissions.
Yeah.
What's that look like?
I'd say it's like an 80-20, truly of self-care. Like when people try to write self-care off as soft skills, I'm like, you don't know how much work that takes. Otherwise you'd be doing it. I meditate typically an hour in the morning. That's just part of my sadhana with yoga nidras work.
Yeah.
I usually head out to the trail, spend time in nature, run 3 to 4 miles. That's a great day. If I get the morning meds and the run in, especially during book season, it's been hard. I feel marginally spectacular by that point. And then I'll go back and spend time with the family, connect with my peeps, get them to school, get the lunches made and all that. And then I get to work, and the work is broken up between pockets of coaching. And I try to pay myself first on the creative tip. Like, I gotta give to the creative well before I can give so much to my clients. And then, because then I'll be walking into those conversations really filled up and inspired. But yeah, no 2 days are exactly alike, but that's probably the loose formula.
That's a lot. Okay, so you're an hour meditation.
4 miles of running, yeah, it's about 32 minutes.
What time do you sit down to work?
10 on average, you know? But like, when I was working with the book, it's a totally different workflow. My coach Christine said, you know, I had to displace meditation. I had to wake up and do the writing about 5 in the morning before the kids wake up.
Yeah.
And then I would start the day. So it's being willing to reinvent whatever's being asked of you, you know, and realizing like, okay, maybe delivering for Yogananda is my meditation for the day. You know?
But you're practicing create before you consume,
Yes.
which is instead the other way around.
Yes.
Where you're consuming and reading, you know, reading all morning and stuff, but you're not creating.
Yeah, exactly. Pay yourself first, and you have more to give others.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems like an inverse. We taught it. We grow up thinking that that's selfish or whatever. You know, just fill the well. You have more to give.
No, but it's exactly what you're.
I want to be mindful of the
I know,
time,
I
and
know.
also
Oh, yeah.
I would like to share a song that I wrote that inspired the book. If you're open to hearing a song, cool. And
Because it just doesn't just drop off, does it? And just end right at 7.
oh, okay, cool.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then we'll keep the request lines open, but I'm willing to play as long as you like to play.
Right. People
Check,
see
check.
maybe you.
Yeah, I'll
I
make
mean,
sure-
I need
I'll
to make sure that you're
yeah,
like on a. Here, let me move this over a little bit. What?
So Christian, so to Christian's question, when I walk into a room full of hard-charging executives and I have my guitar, I usually assume they think I'm about to play Kumbaya or Puff the Magic Dragon. You know, that's the vibe. They're like, oh shit. They're like, this is where we start eye gazing and doing all this uncomfortable stuff. And I usually play this song as just an access point into, you know, if I didn't say it yet, permission to chill, it's not a permission that I'm supposed to give anybody else. I can't give my kids permission to do anything. You know, they have to give themselves permission to fully express, to chill, to feel. And so as an author, I wasn't trying to mansplain people into like why they should allow me to give them permission. It was to inspire them into giving themselves permission. And this song arrived first as this kind of lightning bolt that said, turn me into a book. And it was almost too easy, actually. So this is a song called In the Light. When did we fall out of orbit? Circling around the night. When our skin wears thin, we forget where we've been. Come on, big little dark satellite. And rest. Feel all there is to feel. You will glow again. As you heal. No matter how long you've been waiting, you're never quite ready for grace. She cuts cloudy skies, poison the skylights, and kneels down to kiss your face. Say rest. you hear? Now I'm running on stage on the edge of the dream, feeling unprepared, but no scream. I will know, you will know, I'll look in the dark. I've watched you prepare for this all of your life, and you're wanting to fail, but you're willing to fight it. I will know, you will know, I'll go in the light. In the light. Remind me there's two kinds of fire. Remind me the danger is real. While one fire forges, the other consumes, leaving just what could be still. So we'll rest, and we'll feel while we still feel. And we'll go again and again. As we heal, now we're running on stage, wide awake in the dream, feeling unprepared and we're willing to scream. Oh, I will blow, you will blow, I'll blow every time. We've been prepared for this all of our lives. We're open to fail and willing to fight. I will know, you will know, I'll know in the light. In the light. I'll give you a little mantra, a little chant you can use to remember the prohibitions. When I am still, I can feel, and I will glow in the dark. I will know in the night. When we are still, we can feel, and we will glow in the dark. We will glow in the light.
So I guess, oh my God. Oh,
Can we take one more question or do one? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Teresa has a question.
Alrighty.
Can I just say that having Teresa O'Connor here is a massive deal for me. I want to just shout her out. I said before you got here that you are my friendly neighborhood soul sister mystic, and you helped me see this book before it existed. And I said in the acknowledgments to Teresa O'Connor, you were the first to see this book, which made me believe. So thank you, my teacher.
I don't really even have words to. To just watch this fall move from the Good Life Project, seeing them on stage and outfits and watch it light up a room. And like you could stop at glow in the dark, because we all grew up with some message of don't let the bushel basket be over your light, and we're a divine spark, and remember that. But you took it to the glow in the light. And if we really sit with that, if we really sit with that, then there's only light. And if we're going in the light, and the light that is you, and the light that is me, and each of us is in the light, and then there's really only light. Where you, it's a mystical invitation that you invite us into. by your presence, by who you are, by how you live, as a dad and a husband and a teacher and a coach and a musician, a poet. It's such an inspiration to know you, to have you as a part of my life, our life, and to acknowledge that you were guided, and channeled, especially that part about we are here to glow with the light. We don't stop at glowing in the dark. We're here to be one and glow in the light to one. So.
And I know that feels inaccessible in today's volatile, dark, crazy time at times. But when I think of what our Creator would want for us, is to transcend all of that othering, to stand shoulder to shoulder with other lighthouses of all varying shapes and colors and sizes and stripes and whatever, and to help one another glow. And in our diversity and in our unity, everything is possible. And that's where we transcend and move to we got this. Like, why would we stop at I got this at the expense of we got this? Because there's so much more joy to be found in letting others step forward and lead. I thank you so much for seeing that. And it was the hardest part to write. It's like, how does this even become possible? Yeah, we only have to start somewhere.
Thank you, my brother.
Beautiful, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. Pre-order the book, it comes out 10/5, but you can pre-order the book, Amazon, IndieBound, local bookstores.
If you go through the link or the QR code on the bookmark, it will take you to where you need to be, and there's different packages with different cool, fun added value. I'm also signing these nameplate stickers, so if you want to sign book, I'd love to autograph it. You just slap the sticker in it. It's all 80s vibe. You got to show them the Trapper Keeper stickers. Those are sick. Oh yeah.
I don't want anybody to steal them.
I thought, what's the best way for me to create
Some of the people online.
to create credibility with my corporate clients than to include a picture of my 9th grade yearbook photo with a permed mullet. So the 1980s vibe is alive and well with mantras and this stuff, but this is part of the pre-order package stuff. And yeah, I had a lot of fun designing these. So like my Guru Yogananda is on here and also my permed mullet, but that's what you get.
Well, thank you everyone online. We'll see you at Venture Cafe next time. Thank you to Casey, Kristoffer Carter, and his new book, Permission to Glow. And again, I'm Karin Copeland. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody.